Greetings, deeply respected viewers, dear friends, and loyal subscribers of our analytical project. You are once again on the author's channel, Ruslan Belov, and as is our unwavering tradition, today we present you with a fresh, maximally detailed and comprehensive daily combat report coming directly from the scorching front lines of Ukraine, as well as an unprecedented analysis of the global geopolitical situation. Sit back and get comfortable. Our extensive briefing begins now. Analyzing the current operational situation directly on the Ukrainian theater of military operations, we must first look back at the recent past. Just yesterday, we conducted a comprehensive review of the results of the past month of February. Studying the charts, maps, and advancement statistics, we can state with complete clarity that the offensive tempo of Russian army units continues to hold at an absolutely stable, unchanged level. The very same dynamic we observed throughout January flowed smoothly into February without any significant dips or critical slowdowns. March has now begun, and as traditionally happens at the start of every new month, we are confronted with a certain information vacuum. In the first days of the month, critically little verified information always comes through. This is an absolutely normal, natural phenomenon, conditioned by the specifics of combat operations and operational secrecy. Month after month, the picture at the start repeats itself. This is precisely why, over the past 24 hours, we received only one substantial update from the line of contact, one that was 100% confirmed by ironclad drone reconnaissance footage. Russian assault units executed a tactically precise push and advanced deep into enemy defenses by exactly 700 meters. This occurred on the northern approaches to the strategically important settlement of Lyman. At this moment, this is the only fact with unquestionable visual confirmation. No other advances captured on video or photo were presented during these 24 hours. However, the absence of reconnaissance footage absolutely does not mean the absence of real forward movement on the ground. There is a colossal layer of information that has not yet been visually confirmed, but about which I know reliably from my dependable sources. In particular, on the Slavyansk operational axis, forward detachments of the Russian army have already entered the settlement of Fedorovka Vtoraya. And believe me, the scale of this event is difficult to overstate. This is truly an extremely serious breakthrough in the enemy's defenses. The logic here is simple and inexorable. If in the near term our fighters manage to finally press the Ukrainian formations on this sector and establish full control over the neighboring settlement of Dibrova, then the next settlement in line, Alexandrovka, will receive a massive, scorching greeting. And as we have already repeatedly and in detail analyzed in previous episodes, Alexandrovka plays the role of key gateway, opening a direct path into Nikolaevka. In turn, the fall of Nikolaevka means Russian forces breaking out onto the very nearest, most immediate approaches to the powerful stronghold city of Slavyansk. In addition, extremely encouraging and positive information is arriving right now from the settlement of Grishino. According to preliminary field assessments, approximately 80% of this settlement's territory is already under the confident control of Russian servicemen. Based on this dynamic, one can predict with a high degree of probability that perhaps not by the end of March, but already in the very near future, within the coming week, our assault troops will manage to completely and irreversibly crush this most complex, multi-layered fortified zone. Now let us shift our attention southward to the Orekov axis of the Zaparis Xia front, from where long-awaited confirming materials have finally begun arriving from the settlement of Primorske. I want to remind you that in my previous briefings, I emphasized the fact that absolutely no verified information had come from this grid square. Information that could irrefutably confirm confident and complete Russian control over the entire territory of Primorske. Yes, without a doubt, in the information space, some pro-Russian commentators and analytical sources hastened to declare that this entire vast territory had long since been under the total control of Russian forces, and that right now, Russian troops continue to powerfully press the AFU defensive lines in the direction of the settlements of Richna and Vasilyanka, simultaneously delivering massed artillery and airstrikes against enemy positions in Malokatarynivka. And today, we finally received the first video material directly from this disputed point. So what do specialized Russian military sources tell us when analyzing this footage? The video captures a serviceman of the armed forces of the Russian Federation coming under artillery or mortar fire from the AFU, while being directly within the residential buildings of Primorske. Analysis of the geo-positioning shows that RF Armed Forces units are conducting a steady advance along the former, now dried-out bank of the Kakhovka Reservoir. The depth of this advance reaches up to 3 kilometers, allowing our fighters to occupy and equip new tactical positions in the northern part of this settlement. It is precisely here, on these northern lines, that Russian troops have now dug in and are fortifying new positions. However, based on this objective data, there is currently no talk whatsoever of the Russian army already fully and unconditionally controlling the entire settlement of Primorske. A certain collision with official data arises here, since previously the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation stated in its briefings that this settlement had completely come under Russian control, and moreover that it did so together with the neighboring settlements of Magdaynivka and Zapasne. But while from Magdaynivka and Zapasne we did indeed receive sufficiently prompt and comprehensive confirming materials, photos and videos, attesting that these settlements are being confidently and reliably controlled by Russian troops, from Primorske such evidence had not arrived until today, and only today was this informational vacuum broken by the first video clip. It is worth noting that on many maps this entire territory had already been preemptively colored in the colors of the Russian army. But the harsh reality is that the entire northern part of Primorske, in all likelihood, still represents what is called a gray zone, one that is effectively not fully controlled by either Ukrainian or Russian armed forces. The situation there remains dynamic and extremely tense, especially given recent reports from the ground indicating that Ukrainian military forces are not giving up their attempts to counterattack on this sector, throwing small mobile assault groups into battle. Such are the ambiguous yet carefully considered news coming today from this sector. Next, we smoothly move our attention to analyze the situation on the Helopole operational axis. From here, we receive not only textual news, but also ironclad, visually confirming information, which cannot but please us. As you certainly remember from my past reviews, the settlement of Kharkiv previously came under Russian control. And now, at last, a long-awaited video material has arrived from this specific point. The footage clearly shows a serviceman of the RF Armed Forces proudly raising the state flag of the Russian Federation directly within the residential buildings of the settlement of Kharkiv. This act serves as irrefutable proof and confirmation of the fact that the residential area has come under the complete operational control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Speaking in dry figures, the advance of RF Armed Forces units in this part of Zaparis Xia Oblast reached impressive figures, up to 3 kilometers into enemy defenses in the area of the settlement of Kharkiv. Look at the map. This entire vast territory, carefully marked by us in red, has today finally come under complete, unconditional control of Russian units. For the sake of fairness and chronological accuracy, let me remind you, Kharkiv actually came under Russian control 2 days ago. However, yesterday, for technical reasons, I did not release my daily video, so I was unable to tell you about this in a timely manner. And in my video before that, I did not manage to mark Kharkiv on the map, since this most important information reached me through communications channels at the very moment recording was underway. An absolutely identical positive picture is observed with regard to the settlement of Slavyansk. Today we received and verified video material directly from this location. The footage captures the moment a Russian serviceman raises the flag of the Russian Federation among houses in the residential area of Slavyansk. Analysis of the advance on this sector shows that RF Armed Forces units executed a powerful lunge, pushing 4.5 kilometers westward from the settlement of Ternovate, successfully forcing out the enemy and occupying new, more advantageous positions on the eastern outskirts of this settlement. This video document thus places the final period on the question and confirms confident control over the settlement of Slavyansk. It is worth noting that preliminary confirming materials about the settlement's transition under Russian jurisdiction had already arrived from here previously. If we speak of current operational news and further prospects on this vector, right now Russian troops continue methodically, using all available artillery calibers and aerospace force assets to deliver heavy strikes against AFU positions in the settlements of Verkhnya Tersa and Vozdvizhenivka. Given the specifics of combat operations on this sector that we have observed, it is entirely possible that history will repeat itself exactly. It will happen again. I will finish recording, release this video to air, and at that very moment, Verkhnya Tersa will finally come under Russian control. I already emphasized to you previously the fact that we will most likely receive information from these points following exactly the same scenario as with Rezhdvianka. That is, the settlement will come under the control of Russian forces in an almost instantaneous fashion informationally. Note the phenomenon: there were no prolonged reports in the public space about days-long consolidation in Rezhdvianka. There were no exhausting daily summaries about Russian troops having grabbed the outskirts and begun heavy street fighting, with battles for every single street. No, the information arrived simultaneously and radically. The settlement simply came under complete Russian control, just like that. Exactly the same thing, with the highest degree of probability, now concerns the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. I anticipate that in the very near future it will come under Russian control, and we will learn of this momentous event only after the fact, after the settlement has already been completely cleared of the remnants of enemy garrisons. Such are the changes and positive news we are recording on this sector of the Zaparis Xia front today. We continue our meticulous monitoring and move further along the interactive map. Next up is the Krani Lyman axis, from where another extremely interesting and important video clip arrived today, from a rather specific location. So what do specialized Russian sources and war correspondents say about this? According to their data, RF armed forces assault detachments, displaying wonders of heroism, are occupying new forward positions directly near the entrance to the Krani Lyman solid waste landfill. And they are doing this under unceasing dense enemy fire. Situational analysis shows that the RF armed forces are inexorably advancing toward Krani Lyman from the northern vector, gradually, step by step, expanding controlled territory. The depth of the zone of control expansion on this sector is estimated at approximately 3.5 kilometers. Looking at the map, we can clearly see that Russian troops are entering enemy positions in this particular enveloping fashion. It is worth making an important caveat, however. Some excessively optimistic pro-Russian mapping services have already colored this entire vast territory in red, designating it as being under complete Russian control. But to be fair, no 100% confirming visual information from here has actually arrived yet. Nevertheless, we have already previously analyzed and observed the trend in detail. Russian forces are confidently moving from the direction of the liberated settlement of Stavky. They are systematically expanding their zone of control in exactly this given direction. And today, as I already mentioned, video material was received from this forward point near the landfill. Analyzing the totality of factors, I am inclined to be more confident that it is precisely this entire territory, this entire formed pocket in the Stavky area, that has come under reliable Russian control, rather than the neighboring sector which some maps are talking about. It is important to understand the context. For a very long time, Russian troops made desperate attempts to approach Lyman head-on from its eastern outskirts. But this route proved incredibly difficult, since there operates there simply a colossal, unprecedented number of enemy FPV drone crews who conduct a real hunt for any Russian equipment or infantry. It is precisely because of this drone swarm that consolidating on the eastern vector turned out to be an extremely difficult task. But despite all these lethal obstacles and colossal resistance, Russian troops display incredible tenacity and are gradually consolidating even on these problematic eastern outskirts. Such are the frontline configuration changes here today. All the territory we have now marked in red has come under complete operational Russian control. It is quite possible that already tomorrow, based on fresh reconnaissance data, we will make new adjustments and changes either to this specific sector of the contact line or shift our markers to the neighboring sector. But regardless, one thing remains indisputable. There is a clear, tactically significant advance by Russian forces. In addition to this, a number of informed sources report that Russian troops have significantly expanded their zone of control on a broad front in the area of the settlement of Drobysheve. And this data is finding confirmation at the highest level. This morning, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, in its official summary, reported that the settlement of Drobysheve has finally come under complete Russian control. Also, in the same package with Drobysheve, the final capture of the settlement of Stavky is reported. We are, of course, continuing to watch this extremely tense sector of the contact line without pause and smoothly move further along our operational map. And next on our agenda is the Kharkiv front, from where hot news is arriving from two critically important sectors of the contact line simultaneously. Information summaries are coming from the settlement of Neskuchne, as well as from the nearby settlement of Krula. As of today, confident reports have emerged in the information space that the settlement of Krula was successfully cleared of enemy forces and came under the full control of the RF armed forces. All the adjacent territory marked on our map in red is also under the reliable control of Russian servicemen. Alongside this, extremely welcome reports arrived that the settlement of Neskuchne has also come under the full control of Russian forces. This brilliant operation was conducted and its completion officially announced by the valiant fighters of the Sever North Troop Grouping. If we recall the chronology of their glorious victories, these same units previously took the settlement of Zelene by storm. After that, their powerful offensive pressure distributed and was applied simultaneously in the direction of the settlement of Turnova and in the direction of the settlement of Vesele. And today, this methodical pressure has borne fruit. The strategically important settlement of Neskuchne has been taken. As for the general situation on the northern lines, active bloody combat operations continue without let-up and proceed with high intensity on both the Vovchansk and Liptsi operational axes. However, we must be honest. No radical territorial changes or front breakthroughs have yet come to our summaries from the Liptsi axis. The character of fighting there is predominantly positional and attrition-based in nature. Nevertheless, both sides are not sitting idle. Extremely active, round-the-clock work by FPV drone operators is observed. From the Russian side, unmanned aerial vehicles methodically knock out enemy equipment and manpower at positions in Liptsi and Slobozhansk. In turn, the enemy attempts to fight back and directs its drones against the Russian side. Our positions in the settlements of Hlybok and Lukyantsy come under strikes. These brutal artillery and drone duels proceed continuously, but no significant infantry or armor advances are being recorded here over the course of several long months. The front line has frozen. Exactly the same applies to the situation around the settlement of Vovchansk. Here, active heavy combat operations are being conducted predominantly in the area of the settlement of Vovchansky Khutori. Online, some sources wrote enthusiastically that the eastern part of Vovchansky Khutori has finally come under Russian control. But being an objective analyst, I am compelled to state, no ironclad confirming visual information, photographs or video from there has yet arrived. We are waiting for facts. And now, dear friends, let us take a deep breath, tear ourselves away from the local tactical maps of Ukraine for a time, and look at the macro level, at what is happening right now in the Middle East, and specifically around Iran. Well, what can I say? We are living not simply in interesting times, we are living in a truly historic epoch. An epoch of tectonic ruptures. A time when seemingly inviolable, decades-old rules of the game and geopolitical arrangements change just like that, with a single snap of the fingers. Ask yourself who, even just a week ago, could have imagined, even in the boldest of fantasies, that some state would be capable of openly, massively and calmly delivering massed rocket strikes against inviolable American military bases, against French naval bases, against British secret installations. That anyone in this world would actually dare. That someone would risk throwing an open military challenge at the combined West. But the Islamic Republic of Iran, demonstrably, before the face of the entire stunned world community, showed that this can be done. Iran showed that it is possible to respond to aggression with the utmost severity, that one need not fear the hegemon and its allies. Let us analyze the psychology of this conflict, because when the orange leader in Washington was planning his audacious decapitation operation, what was he thinking? What was his calculation? The calculation was primitive and arrogant. American strategists thought they would eliminate with the very first strike In a single lightning blow, the entire top leadership of the country, the Ayatollah, the perennial chief of the feared Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, the Minister of Defense, and the Chief of the General Staff of Iran's armed forces. And they sincerely believed that after this decapitation, everything would somehow collapse on its own. All resistance would quickly end. In just a couple of days or so, drew direct analogies with the Venezuelan scenario. When Maduro was removed there in his time, that was that. The power vertical crumbled. The country instantly surrendered to the mercy of the victors. Here, in the Iranian case, American hawks thought that exactly the same template would work. They expected that Iran would obediently raise its hands, capitulate after its spiritual leader and all senior military command had been eliminated. Washington was already preparing to celebrate a mega-successful, unprecedented special operation, proving that the United States is superior to everyone in this world. But the hegemon critically miscalculated in its assessment of the Iranian state's mentality and resilience. Yes, without a doubt, they delivered a terrible blow. They killed all the key leaders in this treacherous attack. But Iran not only did not surrender, not only did not panic, it did what no country in the world had ever done in modern history. The Iranian armed forces simply took the full weight of their military power and struck at absolutely every American base within their reach in this explosive region. Well, listen, the scale of this retribution staggers the imagination. Let me simply list point by point which strategic facilities and targets were struck in just these first 2 days of the erupted war. Note, just 2 days. Well, Israel we do not even factor into this list. That is a constant. It is clear that against Israeli territory, from Iran's side and that of its proxies, rockets are flying now, were flying yesterday, and will continue to fly relentlessly. Let us focus specifically on American military installations. The bulk of the United States Navy base in Bahrain came under devastating attack. And Bahrain, so you understand, is this small, strategically located island state in the Persian Gulf. Its capital city is Manama, and it is precisely here, on this compact territory, that the most important headquarters of the famous United States Fifth Fleet is located, the fleet that controls the entire region. And what do you think happened? On the very first day of this regional war, heavy Iranian ballistic missiles struck this supposedly protected headquarters. The rockets punched through the air defense. Then, closer to evening of that same day, the Iranians methodically added more devastating strikes, 2 more powerful ballistic missiles. And yesterday, the entire day, this infrastructure was additionally worked over and leveled with massed kamikaze drone raids. And by the result of this unrelenting fire, approximately 50% of this vaunted US Navy base infrastructure has simply burned completely down to the ground. Let us proceed down the list of targets. Qatar. Here is located not just a base, but the largest, most fundamental American military air base in the entire vast Middle East, the famous Al Udeid Air Base. Let me even show it to you now on our satellite map in detail. So, here, zooming in, you see? Here are the colossal runways capable of receiving strategic bombers, plus a massive complex of structures, hangars and barracks. And here was also located a cutting-edge, technologically advanced early warning radar system. Incredibly expensive, valued at a minimum of $1 billion, according to some estimates, even slightly more than $1 billion. This radar was the eyes and ears of American air defense. It was responsible for the timely detection of launches of any ballistic missiles across the entire region. So I am pleased to report, this vaunted American radar no longer exists here. Iranian missile crews destroyed it with a precision strike. And it is precisely because of this blinding of the air defense system that even more rocket strikes have begun arriving at the base. Because the super radar is out of commission, it is physically destroyed. Or alternatively, it needs such extensive capital repair that it will take months. In any case, at this critical moment, it is in a completely non-operational state. And American air defense systems now see far fewer missile launches from the Iranian side. Reaction time has been reduced to a minimum. Plus, yesterday, another wave attacked this unfortunate Al Udeid base again. Here is a frame of the aftermath displayed on screen. But if you want to see the full scale of the destruction, more exclusive uncensored footage is posted in my Telegram channel. But that is still not all. Let us continue along the geography of retaliatory strikes. The American military base in Kuwait. Kuwait is yet another wealthy Persian Gulf country that infuriated Iran did not bypass in its response. And why did it not bypass it? The answer is obvious. Because there, on its sovereign territory, American military bases are comfortably situated. Here, please, I present for your inspection a fresh satellite image. As of the morning of the previous day, at least 4 heavy ballistic missiles struck this well-fortified base. There is a publicly available image taken from a high-precision Chinese satellite, and you can clearly see for yourselves. Firstly, the black craters from direct hits of rocket warheads into structures, and secondly, the extensive fires that engulfed the infrastructure. But the Iranians apparently felt this was not enough, and then for the entire rest of the day, the unfortunate base was methodically, wave after wave, worked over by strike drones. Iranian unmanned vehicles, completely calmly penetrating the vaunted Patriot system, arrive at American bases and hit their targets. And there are now dozens of such shocking videos from completely different American bases across the entire region circulating online. All in all, assessing the situation, here in Kuwait, the visual damage to infrastructure currently looks somewhat less than the total devastation at the US Navy base in Bahrain, but this damage is unambiguously present and is quite significant. The United Arab Emirates is also taking extremely heavy punishment in this meat grinder. Rocket hits were recorded directly in Dubai, disrupting the usual picture of this millionaire's paradise. And hits against, now pay attention, turn up the volume, hits against the French naval base located in Abu Dhabi. This pride of the Fifth Republic was burning all day yesterday following precise strikes. Iran. I want to emphasize this point once more, for understanding the scale of what is happening. Iran is now in such a state that it is simply not afraid to attack anyone at all. It hits absolutely everyone who poses a threat to it or shelters its enemies. The Iranians are striking Americans, French, British, and so on, down the list of NATO members. And this fact can no longer be concealed. Even the French Minister of Defense made an official statement and was compelled, through clenched teeth, to confirm these humiliating strikes against their sovereign military base. On top of this, massive rocket and drone strikes were also recorded against the large US base in Jordan. This has historically been one of the largest and most important forward deployment bases, where American strategic bombers and multi-role fighters are traditionally concentrated. But the geography of Iranian fury over the past day has expanded even further, extending far beyond the Persian Gulf. Since an unprecedented combined strike was delivered, first the Iranians launched a swarm of rockets, though, to be fair, air defense systems shot them down and they did not reach their targets. But then swarms of drones came flying, and this time Western anti-aircraft gunners could not shoot them down, and they struck a British military base, nowhere, on the island of Cyprus, deep in the rear of the Western coalition. And the British, specifically their official Ministry of Defense, confirmed this humiliating event in their communiqué. Of course, they traditionally state that no one from the personnel died. There are no casualties, but they simultaneously admit through gritted teeth that there is significant material destruction on the territory of the base itself. Well, let us acknowledge one fact. These have only been the first 2 days of the erupted war behind us. This is not some local skirmish or counter-terrorism operation. This is a genuine full-scale regional war threatening to expand into a world war. Already, in one way or another, directly or indirectly, dozens of sovereign countries have been drawn into it. And despite all the secrecy, the Americans have already officially, at state level, acknowledged fallen servicemen. Incidentally, harrowing footage of coffins draped in star-spangled banners, already transported by military transport aircraft to air bases in the United States, with soldiers killed in this commenced war, has been posted without censorship in my Telegram channel. You can also follow the pinned link in the description below this video and look at the price of Washington's geopolitical ambitions. And one must understand, this is only the small number of losses they officially acknowledged. After just 1 day of the hot phase of the war, ask yourself, how many of them will there be in zinc coffins by the end of this entire drawn-out war? Well, as they say, we shall live and see. And you know, since such a massive geopolitical reckoning has begun, and the geography of Iranian rocket strikes is inexorably expanding day by day, and they are deliberately striking everywhere they can physically reach, you know, I do not exclude the possibility that in the course of this war's escalation, we might witness rocket strikes directly against European military bases. This will become inevitable if European countries rashly plunge into this war. And they are already threatening from every direction to plunge into this war on the side of their suzerain, the United States of America. Because the Americans themselves, obviously to the entire world, are no longer managing on their own with this level of escalation and the number of fronts. What can we as analysts forecast here based on the technical characteristics of weapons? The declared and confirmed range of modern Iranian ballistic missiles is at least 2,000 kilometers. Let us hypothesize purely theoretically. Suppose they were to launch their missile complexes from the vicinity of the Iranian city of Tabriz. Do the math yourselves. At such a range, a missile comfortably, with margin to spare, reaches the territory of Romania, for example. And what do we have in Romania? Correct, there are large NATO military bases, missile defense installations, and airfields. So Europe is directly in the crosshairs. Plus, by the way, for the complete picture, one must clearly understand that in addition to these impressive rocket strikes against military bases, Iran has also begun methodically and mercilessly pounding civilian crude oil tankers. They are hitting the vessels whose owners apparently decided they were the cleverest and most cunning, and, ignoring all warnings, went on their usual route through the narrow bottleneck of the Strait of Hormuz. Although they were told at the official level, through all international communication channels, in plain language, that the strait is henceforth closed to shipping by countries of the Western coalition. The outcome was predictable. In just one day alone, at least 3 giant oil tankers were struck and disabled. Such apocalyptic footage of giants burning on the water has already appeared online in abundance. Plus, as the cherry on top, Iran also powerfully struck a large offshore oil platform officially belonging to the United Arab Emirates, causing a colossal fire. In general, I will repeat once more so that you appreciate the density of events. These have been just 2 days since the war began. And yet so many fate-defining, world economy and logistics shattering events have already occurred that it seems as though this global war has been underway for at least a whole month. And let us draw a cynical but pragmatic conclusion for our side. If this Middle Eastern war drags on seriously for longer, the Russian side, as harsh and cynical as this may sound in the context of human tragedies, would find such a scenario extremely and unconditionally advantageous from a military strategic standpoint. It is critically advantageous for us that America becomes bogged down, plunges in there, into those Middle Eastern sands, completely, with all its resources, carrier strike groups and military budgets. And as a consequence, that it sends fewer of its long-range missiles, equipment and money to Ukraine. It is in our interest that precisely there, for the defense of Israel and its bases, all deficit Patriot air defense missiles flow, along with all production and financial resources. And that the arsenals of not only the United States itself are depleted, but also those of all its European NATO allies, and so on down the chain. The deeper the West becomes mired in the conflict with Iran, the easier it will be for the Russian army to fulfill its objectives on the Ukrainian theater of military operations. And for today, dear friends, those are the deep analytical summaries and news I have in my arsenal. As soon as fresh verified changes appear on any sector of the line of contact, I will immediately, in maximum detail, tell you about everything and promptly enter all corresponding tactical changes onto our virtual map. I sincerely thank all of you for your attention and for watching this episode. Do not forget to like, write detailed comments, and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the most important information until our new, soon-coming meetings on air.